Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Family Reflections. I'm in here today with Eleanor Charles. Eleanor, you can tell the people hello.
Hey everybody, what's happening? Comfrey
Yeah,
Massive, class of
compromise.
'09 reunion.
Yeah, man. Today we're taking things are going to be a little different because in the past episodes of Family Reflections, at least, we have been extremely serious because we had to be speaking about some very serious issues. And yeah, so this episode we're kind of taking a step back. We can be a little funny too sometimes. We can take it easy sometimes, And I just
Most
decided
time.
yeah, I just decided it would be a good idea to catch up with an old school friend of mine, Eleanor. And
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to the conversation that we're going to be having today. Eleanor is joining us all the way from the UK, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And shout out to technology for even making this possible, right?
yeah. Connections, just like that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So, Eleanor, what can you tell the people about you? Give them a short introduction to who you are, what you're all about.
Right. So I'm Eleanor. I am. You hear this? I'm a mommy of four. I just started a YouTube channel. My blogging journey, talking about motherhood and marriage and the kids, and just really trying to start conversations, continue conversations about a lot of difficult topics and etc. etc.
Yeah, man. So if you're watching this, make sure that you go to YouTube. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Check out her
Yeah,
videos. How
new
can people find
channel.
you? How can they find you?
So my channel name is El Charlo, ELCHARLO, and then press the subscribe.
Yeah, man. So definitely go check out. She has some great content there. Eleanor, we left Compre about a decade ago, right?
A long time.
That means,
Time for gray hairs ago. That's the time.
a lot of things have changed. We have changed.
A
I'm not the
lot.
same person I was when I left Compre. Um, would you
What
say?
What would you say has changed about the most about you?
Oh gosh, boy, wow. That's a great question. What has changed the most about me? I would say I'm more I'm more in touch with who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I left Compre, I was 17, and there were a lot of things that I have learned about myself, a lot of things that I've accepted about myself, um, ever since 2009. That some things I wish I knew, some things at the end of the day, you are who you are, and at my age now, I just know myself better, and I really enjoy that. And yeah, I'm glad that that's the case, right? What about you?
1 second, the kids.
Yeah,
So
no
what
problem.
were you saying?
So I was saying, like, how do you see that you have changed ever since Compre days?
Have I changed is the question. I think a lot of people watching this video, I think a lot of people from our year who see that will be like, where boy, Eleanor is still that same goofy. I think what has changed the most is that I just 100% in mommy mode now. Like everything I do is just about the kids, every
Right.
single thing. So yeah, that's
But what does
pretty
that
much
look like, though? When you say mommy mode, tell us a little bit about mommy mode. What's that like?
every single thing I do basically just revolves around them. This video, I had to make sure they were fed, pampers changed, everything. So it's just everything revolves around them, really. Just every single thing. So whereas I'd be able to just get up and go, then you have to think, okay, the kids, this. Are they sorted? And then move, rather than just pick up yourself and go, which I'm sure very freelance over there. It's completely different for you. But yeah, that's what mommy mode is like for me. Yeah.
So, okay, I like to ask these questions to kind of put things in perspective, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
imagine that before you had the children that you have now, you could sit down with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
3 children,
Mm-hmm.
and
4.
Yeah, pre 4 children.
Yeah, yeah.
And give yourself some sort of a heads up, like, hey, this is what you can expect. This is what you can do to make it easier, to help things balance out a little more. Like, what would you tell yourself?
Oh my gosh. I just started this new journey. A lot of the things that I had difficulty with, like, just a lot of the issues with the person itself, a lot of issues with myself. Like, the reason why people have issues in the first place is because of generational trauma. And I wish that I knew, I was aware of it, and then I would be able to address it
Mm-hmm.
and navigate from there, because it changes your entire parenting style, the type of every single thing just changes when you are aware of things like that. And I wish I knew that back then. A lot of the things, because I had twins first, so it was, with those two girls,
Those
and you
wow.
could their personality is completely different from the second two, because from the time that I realized these things and I was able to address them, then it's pretty much like you have a fixed version of myself to now, mother these other two. So whilst I'm trying to correct the mistakes I made with them, because they were my firstborns, I was 21 years old. A lot of things I didn't know with them, and you could see it in their personality. You could see it, like, you could just see it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Now, you mentioned generational trauma. Can you dig into that a little bit more? Like, what exactly are you referring to when you say generational trauma?
I think every single person in the world has issues, especially our generation, where things like that are not brought to light. It's like, especially in the Caribbean, it's a normal thing to, things that we would consider normal is abuse,
Right,
and then
right.
because we allow it, and then just transcending from generation to generation, nobody not checking themselves. So it's like, this is normal. I'm going to do it. My kids getting it. Parents did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think me understanding that and realizing that, and it's like, hey, that's not right. That's not how it's supposed to be. I hear people say all the time, oh, my father used to give me licks and look how well I turned out. And I look at it, I was like, did you turn out well? Really? Did you really turn out well? No, you didn't. It's just, it's a normal thing. And probably you survived in spite of, despite of. But did it really make you a better person to get your butt, whooped? Not really.
Yeah.
I don't
So
think so.
it's so funny that you mentioning this, because just last night I was in a conversation with someone about this very issue, because I think in Caribbean culture, what we do is, in order to deal with our trauma and deal with our issues, the women, oftentimes, not all the time, but the women tend to use religion and go to church, and the men use alcohol and sex, right?
Boy, what's opposite, sir? So the girls going
Now,
to church.
no, hold on. Let me tell you. A lot of the time, there's always people who use different things. Everybody's different, but what the trend that I see is that that's generally the case, right? Generally, when you walk into a church, you mostly see women in there. Generally, when you walk into a bar, you mostly see men in there, right?
That's true.
So, what do you think about that?
I would hate to paint a picture that would show, women going to church to try to curb, heal the generational trauma. Because now, if I sit down in a church, I'd be like, boy, what you're trying to say about me? I have generational trauma. That's why I decide
No, 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 no. That's not all. That I'm not saying that going to church is all about trying to avoid your issues or trying to paint a
Yeah.
brush over your issues.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and an argument can be made that it is a much healthier way to do that. But I think that a lot of people do use that, right?
Yeah. Which rightfully so. That's exactly what it's for. It's, to get back to healing. That's basically what, you know, churches are for, healing. So, I mean, we have to just try to investigate why the men not doing it too. We have to get them in the church
I
as
mean,
well.
of course, the men do it too, right? I still go to church,
Well, yeah, and then there's this whole stigma about church boy, and they just have so many things wrong,
Of
huh?
course.
Just so many things wrong. Where do you begin? To start trying to, oh my goodness. where do you begin? But yeah, we have to try to figure out how the guys aren't coming to the church. I saw my cousin is a priest and I follow him on Facebook. He said something to the effect of, sinners should not be seeking out the church. The church should be seeking out sinners, like instead of those broken trying to go and look for, then the
Right.
church should, be coming to, I don't know if it's the communities or wherever to find out. It's like, wow, that's very interesting. And for a priest to say something like that, it's like, you know what?
Well,
But then again,
I think that is the case, right? I think, for many churches, well, different denominations to different degrees, a lot of churches do place some sort of emphasis on evangelism and reaching out to the community, right?
yeah. But I mean, because I'm a Catholic, I never really experienced it that way. I think it's just mainly you find yourself in the church. You find yourself in the church by whatever means. But you're right. With other denominations, like the other churches would have like what you call it, those kind of camps and thing, and then you bring a little friend, and all of a sudden that little friend converted, and so yeah. Some I guess it's down to probably the denomination as well.
Right. So would you say that you have any healthy ways of dealing with your trauma, or was there a particular way that you dealt with yours that helped your motherhood? Because from the way you spoke about it, it sounded like that was something that you used to kind of become a better mother or grow
Yeah.
as a mother.
Well, first I had to identify, the toxic things, the toxic people, and I had to, just confront them. This is what it is. I'm trying to stop generational trauma. I try not mixing up in that. Either you with it or you're not. And those who are not, I cut them off. So, I mean, it's a process. You're not just going to fix it overnight. And even in myself, like a lot of the things, bad habits. So, for example, I'm a shouter. Don't ask me where I get the shout from. My mother was never a shouter. I think I had a friend, their parent was a shouter. You see how things happen? Their parent was a shouter. Every time I go to the friend house, rah, 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 rah. And subliminally, you're not saying, oh, wow, that looks inspiring. She's shouting at her child. Let me do it too. You don't think that. But because subliminally you see it, it registers. And probably you're not even checking to see if that's right or wrong, but you're just learning those mannerisms, and then it happened to me. So bacchanal is to clean your room. So that was one of the things that I was just really trying to cut down on. Just the shouting is just,
Well, even shouting that's an interesting one, right? Because in Caribbean culture, shouting is nothing. Like everybody
it's
shouting.
nothing. It
Shouting
is
is part of the
nothing.
life.
Yeah.
We shouting
Yeah.
for everything. If you quarreling, you're shouting. It's just a shouting fest, right?
But one thing, it's something interesting. When I just came to the UK, because I moved here, the kids, they probably just turned one. And I remember this child, she was having a tantrum in the supermarket with the mother. And I just remember sitting there. I was so like, what is happening in front of my eyes? The child having a big meltdown in the middle of the shop. Rah, rah, rah. The mother gets down, stoops down to eye level. I understand this is the problem. I had never seen anything like that. What Caribbean person you see to come and try and reason with a child and
Right.
and I was like, what is happening? And then, because you accustomed to something, that doesn't mean it's right, but that's just our normal thing.
I mean,
If you try that in Lucia, they hold you by your ears already, or you get a big slap already, or
I mean, so here's my thing, right? Because I've seen that myself, and when you see it, you wonder, because the first thing in your mind is, boy, that child need licks. What kind
Yes.
of nonsense? That child needs some
Yes.
licks. All
Yes.
right. But then you look at the parents' approach of reasoning with the child and sitting down and all this stuff. And on my end, I feel, okay, nah, that child taking advantage of you. But
Yeah.
then on the flip end too, you also think that there are people in Caribbean culture that sort of discipline and that sort of thing where you can't talk, you never reasoned with, there is no conversation. Maybe that limits the freedom of expression, freedom of thought, critical thinking of a Caribbean person.
Exactly. Because I was trying to understand, like, I have so many, I know, oh my gosh, they're here again. One second.
All the viewers know you have children, so we understand. Do whatever you have to do.
Okay. And it's a baby, so she can't talk. So yeah, what were we saying?
I was about to tell you that I feel there is a halfway point between licks and reasoning.
Ooh!
There might be a halfway
I think
point.
the way you start out, if you start off with licks, that's when you're going to find the difficulty.
Okay.
If you start off with licks and then that's the only thing they can respond to,
Right.
then that's when you're going to find the difficulty. But yeah, I understand what you mean. Like sometimes these children, they just, you know, and they know wrong from right and they still do it anyways. And you just think to yourself, boy. But the thing with giving them licks is just, you know, yourself being angry. It's not necessarily you trying to discipline the child.
Yeah, no. I'll pause you right there. I don't believe in beating as revenge and giving licks as revenge. Like, oh, you did this, let me show you. Let me show you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. you know the licks where they're so vexed that they have to give you the syllables for each stroke. Let me show you what I was. No, but I believe in licks with, okay, this is what you did. This is the consequence of your action. And let's reason together also with the licks on why moving forward you're going to behave appropriately and what was wrong with your behavior before, right? And I think if you use that approach, and let me tell you something, I'm not a parent, okay? I'm not a parent. I'm just a Caribbean man.
I think you'll see when you become a parent and you give that child lick, or they come and or don't beat me. Oh my God. Them children, let me tell you something. Workout.com. I call my kids Conatis, you know, because you see when they come and they start, that's it. But you know, one of the things is that if your wife or somebody you respected did something wrong, you wouldn't beat them.
True.
So that was one turning point for me. And I just think that you just have to respect those kids. I don't know how, because you say it's not a revenge thing, so that means you're going to calm down, and then when both of you come, try to reason and say, okay, so I'm beating you. And then when you were talking about that, you know what I was thinking in my head? The image playing in my mind, slavery. How they used to whip them. Seriously, like the slaves. That's where we get it from, you know.
I thought about that.
Whipping thing is inside of us. It's inside of us. And one of the things I learned about generational trauma is it changes your DNA. So even though you were not aware of the trauma, you would find these manifestations whether or not you know cognizantly about it. So I was like, what?
No, that's interesting because I've thought about the whole slavery thing as well, because I don't think it is any accident that mainly amongst Black people, you see the sort of corporal punishment and in our schools, in our homes, corporal punishment being used as a tool to keep things under control. But the thing is, while that sounds well and good, a lot of the people watching this are going to be thinking about the situation with the girl pulling the tantrum in the store, right?
Yeah.
Are you now saying that you completely agree with the mother's reaction in that case?
I would say that I would never say that a resort is to hit a child. I would never say that. And the thing, like I said, the way you start off with it is, and the thing again, the reason why we beat as well is because, again, it's some sort of a power struggle. You're telling me that you find it so difficult to communicate with a child, to get through to a child and say, this is wrong, you're not supposed to do this, that you have to hit them, literally physically inflict pain so that they hear you, so that they understand you. I don't know. If I just feel like for me, it would be weak of me to just like a power struggle thing, like I'm the dominatrix here kind of thing.
And
But
so,
I do think that children need to know their place. You're a child, you're not paying bills, you're not doing nothing. Like, you need to have manners and respect and all of that. You're a child and you have to know your place. But teaching them their place is like, I just trying to eradicate it from as far as I can reach.
I think for a lot of Caribbean parents, a lot of people that use corporal punishment, which I think is everyone in the Caribbean, a lot
Yeah,
of people that
everybody.
use corporal punishment, a lot of it is fear that if I don't do what was done to me, my child is not going to turn out like me. My
Ah,
child, my child
and
might
then these
be.
people, they need to think, well, how did you turn out? Because that kind of, when you shame a child like that, when you hurt a child like that, that manifests in a different way. Sometimes you can't, those type of people that don't hug, they don't hold hands, because they just have some kind of blockage,
Mhm.
and it manifests in a different way. So who's to say that you turned out right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Back to the same person who said I turned out fine. Who's to say you turned out fine? You could have probably been 1,000 times the person you are today if you didn't have that blockage, that fear, where you were supposed to be receiving love, you were getting licked with a stick, you know?
You know what you just made me think of just now too. I remember when I was a little boy growing up. I was always an opinionated little person.
Mhm.
um, hence this talk show. but
Mhm.
I remember being around adults and they're talking about different things that I might have an opinion on, and I might want to say something like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe that's not a good idea. You see my little
Mhm.
finger.
Mhm. Mhm.
uh, and I wouldn't dare say anything because growing up, the whole rule was you don't put your mouth in grown people business. You don't put your mouth
Yeah.
in grown people conversation, right? And in doing that, I learned to keep my mouth shut around people or adults when adults were talking, right?
Mhm.
Do you think doing that kind of stops children from expressing themselves? Now, again, folks on the line, before y'all get vexed with me, I'm just asking a question. Relax.
Do you think you were unable to express yourself when you were a child when that was happening?
Um, that's a good
Or you
question.
probably just felt scared, like, let me not. Again, the thing I say, like, kids have to know their place. And again, it depends the topic. If you're talking about, okay, so say for example, what were they talking about?
I'll give you an example, right? So, as a certified church boy, right? This comes from
Mm-hmm.
church. um,
Mm-hmm.
I was it was one evening and there was some much older men. These guys, I'm talking 40, 50 years old. They were talking
Mm-hmm.
about some religious debate, right? Something about doctrine or something. And I had some points and I said them. And I was about 5 years old, 6 years old at the time.
5 years
And
old, 6 years old. My
just
goodness.
to be safe, let's say 6 or 7, but it was very young, right? It was definitely way below 10.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so impressed that they grabbed me and I became part of the panel. I was,
You were part of the panel, the church
yeah,
panel.
not, I mean, this wasn't really a official church panel. This was just some grown men outside talking about something that was important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of sat on the panel there with them, and we talked about some interesting things. Um, there were a lot of other times in my life that I feel like that would not have happened because I would have tried to stay away from putting my
Yeah.
mouth into the grown folks' business.
I think, well, that's to show you it depends on the topic. So if it's rated R and PG-12
Oh
and
yeah,
all
of
these
course.
things, then kids should not be, should children be talking about politics? Well, again, you'd say what aspect of politics, because they're gonna try to campaign for the education system and thing like that. So I think it's just down to the topic. But I have found myself tell my kids, like, know your place. That doesn't have anything to do with you, kind of thing, because appropriateness is a big thing as well. Huh?
All right. And even
But
oh sorry,
mhm.
go ahead.
In terms of creativity and all of that, you could foster it in different ways. It's not just, butting into adult conversations. You could give them their own platform to express themselves as well. It's not just one way. So I wouldn't think it would be so much of a big problem.
All right. I think for me, something that definitely helped a lot with that is having a mother and a father that I could speak to in depth about issues that were bothering me, and they would listen and give me feedback as well. So, yeah, I think that's a
But
big...
you turned out okay for it. I mean, you're on a talk show, interviewing, very still outspoken. You're not scared or anything. So you turned out well in the long run.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, but it's down to the topic a lot of the time. The topic, is it appropriate? Is it relating to you? Is it affecting you? Somebody wrote on Facebook, who's going to pay the bill? Something to the effect of, just how mentally tasking it is for all the young people when we talk about, what's going on in the world today with all this racism and thing. Because how are they now going to interpret it, kind of thing. And that in itself is a very traumatic thing. It's like we're going through the revolution all over again,
Yeah, well, how have you been handling? I don't know what the
Oh boy. You sure you want to go there?
I mean, hey, if you don't want to go there, we don't have to. But I'm just curious.
That topic in itself will cause a lot of bacchanal. I do not expose my children to it at all.
At all?
At all.
And why is that?
The Kardashians. One time, one of the Kardashians typed something about, she was explaining to her very young children that they're privileged, about their white privilege, and they're superior almost over Black people. And I was just thinking to myself, what if one of my kids' white friends from school goes to my Black child and says, I am superior over you, kind of thing. I understand I have privilege. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I would flip. I would do backflips. I would go in that school, find the principal. Like, I would just make big drama about it because, we want to talk about equality and making people feel inclusive and all of that. And for my child to come and ask me, Mom, why did this child say to me that they're better than me, kind of thing? And then now I have to sit down and explain. I understand the whole thing. Like, people will say, oh, you're being delusional. I understand the whole thing, that there is a problem. But when you continue to paint the picture and you're telling the next generations coming that this is what it is, it's like you want it to stay that way. And I don't want it to stay that way.
I completely understand your perspective. And it's very interesting. I'm very excited because I'm excited because I like speaking to different perspectives. So here's my thing, right? The argument of everyone, I think a lot of especially the American people that might do, their argument would be that your children will be exposed to some sort of racism at some point in their life. And so it's better to be knowledgeable about it so that they're prepared for that eventuality.
Yeah. Children are not emotionally mature enough to understand it. They're not. So you're telling me you're trying to explain to a child the complexity of, a lot of things you just would not be able to process at that age. That's why we don't expose them to it in the first place. And a lot of things that I don't expose my children to because they're not emotionally mature enough to understand. I cannot sit down and explain to them, look, this is why we cannot see this family member anymore because, of generational trauma. You understand the list of questions that will open up for me? They cannot understand that. So it's like, this person is on vacation and you know what I mean? And the thing is, in the Caribbean, stop it. In the Caribbean, we were not exposed to racism like that. So I think that's why, I wouldn't call it desensitized, but I think that's why Caribbean young people just feel differently about the situation because we were not experienced, we were not frontline, I should say.
And On the last episode of Family Reflections, I think I expressed to Mike that I believe is actually a privilege that I was afforded as a Caribbean person, because I was able to not grow up black. I just grew
Yeah.
up. I just grew up as a guy.
Normal.
I
Just
was
grew
just
up
a normal
normal.
guy.
Like what you talking about,
Um, but we still had. I mean, we still had issues with colorism. You know.
Yeah, we still definitely had issues with colorism, but it wasn't anything to say, let's kind of, yeah. But yeah, so in that regard, that's why but the thing is now, when I watch I try to not watch all of those movies, those police brutality, and you know how my blood does boil, 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 boil when I see these things. So imagine trying to show a child, expose a child to all of these things. How are they going to, understand that in their mind? Now I'm an adult and I can put things into perspective, and, but how will a child be able to do that?
All right. So
Kind of thing.
I understand your perspective about the emotional maturity of your child, but when would you think the child might be old enough to open a conversation like that?
When they show me they're emotionally mature enough. Children mature differently. I was very mature as a child because of trauma and experiences, and I don't want that for them. Like, they have to enjoy their childhood. Let them be children. Because I tell you, me and my friends, Dee Dee, Jody, and them, we always like, oh my gosh, I wish we could go back to Comfrey and no bills, no nothing. Like, enjoy your childhood. People listening to this, young people, enjoy your childhood. You only be a child once. Now you have the kids, you have decisions, you have bills, you have obligations. It's a different dynamic. So enjoy it whilst it lasts, because that's it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I completely agree.
yeah.
How would you say? I mean, we are talking about the children, but I want to flip to you for a little bit. Have you encountered any racism since you migrated to the UK, or have you had anything that you personally experienced?
I think every single Black person in those first world countries have probably experienced it. But my thing is, like, I wouldn't make it an issue. Again, I was able to process it in my mind. These people are ignorant to a degree. They, for you to think that you're better than somebody because of your skin color, like, and then that's supposed to do something to me. Why? Because, but yeah, I have definitely experienced it. A lot of things I've seen, and it's just like, what? But I mean, the more you give these things power, and again, then they're gonna come back at you. It's just a whole, like, whenever you jump into that thing, it just opens the box for so many other cascade of bad events. And for me, it is what it is. It's there, but I don't give it power. Basically, I just don't give it power. I know myself, I know my worth, and nobody can decide my worth. So, and that's how I operate.
Right. I want to give you a story that I think actually places a little bit of emphasis on what you just mentioned. I was at an engineering convention, right? It was my senior year in college, and we went down to Nashville, Tennessee for National Society of Black Engineers convention, right? I was active in that club at school, and we went down there for a job fair and networking and all that good stuff. And of course, in that professional environment, we would be dressed up. We have our suits and ties. We have our business cards. We're prepared to meet the recruiters and meet the people, right? And while standing there, I'm just standing there with some of my friends, and another Black girl walked by, and she stopped, and she was like, "Wow, look at 3 or 4 Black engineers." And that, of course, that made us feel good. But in the back of my head, it struck me that before she said that, I just thought of myself as an engineer. There was no, I'm a Black engineer. There was no Black. In my mind, I was just thinking, I'm an engineer. And the experience of African Americans, unfortunately, unfortunately, taints a lot of things because people start to think through that lens. And it's difficult not to when you're surrounded by the media and you're surrounded by
Because they just
experiences.
keep projecting it. They just keep projecting it and making it an issue, making it a thing. And it's a constant projection because we keep talking about, again, people are going to say, okay, you have to bring awareness and all of that. Like, I understand that. But if you're telling me either you're trying to bring awareness or you're trying to, bring equality, you cannot do both,
Well, I think someone would argue that you can do both, and the argument would be that
You can do both, but
uh,
you will not get it at the same time. You won't reach the destination at the same time because you constantly talking about that divide. I was watching this Reggie Yates interview and he was talking about, so in South Africa, things are basically, the script is turned up. So the white people are very, very poor and the black people are very rich.
really?
And one of the black men came on screen and he's like something to the effect of, yes, so now we, the rule, what's it, the rules are changed now, we are the rich ones and they have to bow down to us, kind of thing. And I was like, what? That just set us back how many years? Oh my gosh, how many years does that set back the human race when we say things like that, when we think like that,
Right.
instead of saying, okay, let's try to work together and be equal, it's like, no, now we're the bosses and we get to, yeah. But
Well,
Reggie Yates, he makes a lot of these, kind of very interesting documentaries. So guys, check it out, Reggie Yates
so
interview.
from my opinion, I believe that the path to equality is increasing awareness as a vehicle to equality, right? So you mentioned that you're not going to get both at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm of the opinion that in order to achieve equality, what you're basically doing is using awareness and protest as a vehicle to reach that end. Can
Mm-hmm.
you see how that could work?
um I could definitely see that. Yes, if people call me delusional, I probably call myself delusional as well, because I just don't see why I should in 2020 have to tell anybody that my life matters because the color of my skin.
All right.
I think that's just disrespectful for me to open my mouth and say, like, why should I have to tell you that? You should know that should be a matter of fact. So I don't know. I just, again, probably it's down to my personality as well. Like, I shouldn't have to tell you that, kind of thing.
All right.
But like you said, you have to, bring the awareness and whatever. So yeah, I guess. But you're saying that you should definitely have to go out and, tell people that your life matters and stuff like that.
Well, here's the thing. I agree with you that you shouldn't. It's
Yeah.
by no means should you have to go out and tell people that your life matters. Um, it it should be a well-known fact. But an argument could be made that by no means should anyone have ever thought that a black person was three-fifths of a human being, right? By no means should anyone have ever thought that a black person or a white person could not get married, and it should be illegal. And apparently, that was actually illegal up until I believe the 1950s or 1960s. So people don't realize that a lot of this stuff is very, very recent. My mom was. I believe my mom told me that she was 5 years old when she heard that Kennedy was assassinated. You know, so a lot of this stuff is very recent. But here's the thing, and this is where I agree with you, and I don't really have a solution yet. But I agree with you that we need to be very careful to monitor how we let the media coverage of this affect us. uh, it's possible to be proactive and to be an activist and effect real change while also not letting yourself be poisoned by the media trying to keep your eyes glued to the television screen. Because at the end of the day, the media is not covering protests and racism because they care. they're covering it because it's a good story. They're covering it because they can get clicks, they can get engagement, right?
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful not to let ourselves get sucked into that media vacuum.
Exactly. And the thing is, because we now don't control the narrative is the most difficult thing to do. So that's why we start with the man in the mirror and try to, try to make the change from there.
So how do you find balance? How do you just try to keep your eyes away from news about that stuff all the time?
Oh my
Or
gosh. I remember when that just started. I used to go on, Shade Room on Instagram and
yeah,
literally be
Shader.
bawling, ugly cry tears at those articles that I used to see. It was so heartbreaking. Why is this happening in 2020? So yeah, I just had to really, really just step back. And the bad thing is that through trying to, share all of that awareness, so many people now are just emotionally drained. So now you find you're losing momentum and you're not achieving what your original goal was, because now people just don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it, because it just, you bring you to tears, make you feel angry and depressed and emotional. And how do we get things to change without making people feel like this? How? I don't know how. I don't have all the answers, but I feel like the way that things were going, that's how I felt about it. And it was draining. It was so draining. So draining. I don't usually let things affect me like that, but I just remember being, it was awful.
See, and that's exactly what I was talking about. In order to affect real change, we can't be emotionally depleted.
Exactly.
We have to
And
be,
because we're emotionally attached, because anytime you hear that, somebody of your own this, your own that, it doesn't even matter, like whatever color you are, if somebody treated in a bad way, then it's an awful thing. It's an awful thing. Man, it was just so much. It was just too much, huh? Because even in Little St. Lucia, where you hear about all of this, they're whipping you, they're this and you, they're that and you. I don't know, maybe because we were accustomed to it. Maybe if somebody else, a different culture saw it, maybe they would be in tears like how I was. So maybe it's just a sensitization thing.
Yeah,
But
and I think there's a lot of difference between the experience in the UK versus the one in the United States.
yeah, it's very different as well.
I can give you,
But you do get it a lot here. But because we have so much human rights, this and all of that, and they're very much more poised than over here. Whereas they're very raw in the USA. They tell you anything, they do anything, and it's like, so I think probably they just cover it up better here, but you still have so much of it. So much.
you want to hear a funny story? I got a funny story for you.
We love funny stories.
Yeah, so flashback to maybe, I think this was back in 2018 or 2017. It was late one night and I was speeding on my way to go bring something back to my girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
So I'm speeding down the street. I was doing like I was doing like a 70 and a 35. just blazing.
Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto, right? And there was a gas station, all lights off, and the police was just in the gas station waiting for me. Like he knew I was coming. And the thing is, when you see something and it's almost like slow motion, right? So I'm blazing, and just out of the corner of my eye, I see the white and blue. I see shocks, man. I know those sirens going to turn on, right? So as soon as I pass him, of course, I take my foot off the gas. I try to slow down, but it's too late. He see me already.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I see the lights go off, and immediately as a black man in America, I know, okay, hands on the steering wheel, wallet on the dashboard, keys out, right? I'm fully prepared, right? I know what I'm doing. So he comes up, walks up to my window. I lower the window down. And so, so I try my best, because here's the thing. Colonialism has caused the British accent the British accent to be universally accepted as meaning that you are smart. It means you're poised. It means you're
Yes.
polite. It means
Yes.
all these things.
Yeah.
And if you, and because the St. Lucian accent is based in the British accent, it's not the
Yeah.
British accent, but it's based in Queen's English.
Mhm.
You already have some slight twangs that you can pull a little bit
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
sound British, right? So he comes up to the window, and I'm like, "Hello, officer. I deeply apologize. I'm so sorry for causing any inconvenience. I'm just really in a rush. I normally don't speed.
Oh my god.
I'm absolutely sorry." And he looked at me. He smiled and said, "Oh, I see you're in a bit of a hurry." He just gave me a warning. I didn't even get a ticket. I
Oh
did not get
my
a ticket. Okay, I was like 40 over the speed limit. I
gosh.
didn't get a ticket or anything. It was like, hey, take it easy, just slow down, right?
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying that the accent is what saved me from the ticket, but
Yeah.
you never know. You don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And why is that? It's so annoying to me. If you look at TV shows and you look at movies, the smart person, the person in the lab with the
Mhm.
glasses is always
Mhm.
the person with the British accent, like, hello, how you doing?
Mhm. Mhm. So now your head ass yank when they stop yelling. Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
No,
Oh, but
go ahead.
uh-huh.
I was gonna say that even in this story, there is the serious point of oftentimes I feel like I have gotten better treatment in both corporate America and in my daily life because I am not African American. Because
Mm.
people can hear that in from your accent, you're not from this country, you're from
Mhm.
another country. And if you're
Mhm.
speaking well and speaking standard English, they tend to, there's almost something that happens where you're not you're not regular black, and it's
Yeah.
terrible. I'm not
Yeah.
advocating for this, but it's something that's not often talked about, and I just wanted to mention it on here.
Yeah. We had an incident outside our house where the police stopped some people, some boys who were fighting by the road. And the mom comes downstairs and she's like, "Oh, the people in this building always calling the police for black people." Da, 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 da. And you could hear them because the way London houses are, it's like flat, so it's big blocks of like apartment buildings. And
Right.
I was like, my husband Travis and I were watching them downstairs, and I was like, "You see why I can't have a son? I can't have a son. I cannot have a son." And Travis is like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Eleanor, you getting on so do 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 do. I can't have a son." Boy, the bacchanal I would have caused out there, it would have been of extreme like, and I wouldn't be able to live in America. You see all that going on, I would never be able to live in America. I wouldn't be able to do it. Just constantly, that's my reality day in, day out. I don't know, if my husband gonna come back home safe, and I wouldn't be able to do it. I
Well,
wouldn't.
on my end, what I do is basically what we were talking about earlier in the podcast, where you mentioned that you remember who you are and where you're from. Because I
Yeah.
didn't grow up black,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think of myself in that way. Although I completely identify with being a black man, I'm aware that I'm a black man,
Yeah.
but I don't let me being a black man limit the
Makes
way
you
I
act
think
different.
or
Yeah.
act differently or
Yeah.
anything like that. Which it's all a little convoluted, you know.
Yeah, and then people gonna look at it as being delusional as well. Well, my delusional is more extreme than yours, but because we were not exposed to it like that, I think people are gonna be like, because the truth is, it is not our reality. They'll be like, "You're not being real because it isn't your reality." And again, people love to project their feelings and thoughts and everything on you, and if we're doing this, then we're supposed to do that. I remember a lot of the time where all of these things were just starting, and it was like almost a bullying thing where you have to have it in your status, you have to post about it, that blackout day. Like, why, if you're being silent, then you're a traitor, and kind of thing. And I was just like, wow.
Well, on my end, I think it's not so much that I'm not aware that it's my reality, but it's more so that I am very intentional in the way that I let it affect me,
Yeah.
right? I don't let the situation drain me of my emotional energy. I'm
Yeah,
very selective in the news that I watch. Um,
exactly. The
I'm
news is,
also I'm also very intentional in the way that I support, so I've donated, I've posted to spread social awareness, but I do these things while also staying out of the news cycle all the time. I
yeah,
don't sit on CNN, I don't sit on Fox News or
yeah,
any of those news outlets,
mm-hmm.
and I just try to be informed without being affected.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah,
And I
man.
find, yeah, it is something to try to navigate around, because if you tell me to know what's going on, you have to literally be in tears. Oh my gosh, I don't know. But that was just so overwhelming.
Yeah.
So overwhelming. Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to segue really quickly into COVID. You can't really have any show without talking about COVID a little bit.
Exactly.
uh, there's a general, I feel like there's a general feeling in the community now that uh, there's a little bit more to the whole COVID situation than what we're being told.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way?
Um, in terms of it not being real, or
Nah, maybe not necessarily in terms of it not being real, but maybe uh, how it was created, where it came from.
you know what? I watched too many of them movies to my mind, trust me, blast off everywhere already. And I feel like it's not really important where it came from and all of that business. It's just, I find it very, the way when they broadcast media, you have to wear a mask. They're going to make it a rule in the UK starting next Friday. You're going to basically have to pay £100 fine if you go to a shop without a mask. And I'm like,
Jeez.
what? And I think that was, I read as well that they were trying to start this in America, and they actually wanted the police to like come around and start arresting people. I'm like, what about the mask so much? What is it? There must be something else as to why the mask, why are people now needing to wear a mask? You would hear that, with the influenza, it is, spreadable as well, it's airborne as well. Nobody was wearing masks, but now you want people to wear masks. Why? I don't know. So in that regard, I do think there's something fishy there. I can't figure out that mask thing yet. I don't know what about it. When I wear a mask, I can't breathe. So I don't know if they're trying to kill us so or what it is. But I
So
do find that bit fishy.
no, I agree that the mask is inconvenient, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I go running and it's annoying having a mask restricting your airflow because
Yeah.
already I'm already not fit enough, so
Yeah.
I run.
So you wear a mask or not?
Yeah, so when nobody's around, I try and pull it down, but as soon as you get to a crowded place or you start seeing people,
Yeah.
you have to try and put it back on, and then
Yeah.
you can't breathe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
And you're there panting and it's like,
yeah,
oh.
but the thing is, I think the reason the governments are trying so hard to get people to wear the mask is because it is sort of a proven way, or at least a proven way to kind of stem the flow of the spread of the virus.
I
And
think at this point they're just looking for things to do, and as long as they're ticking boxes and saying we're doing things, because you see all of these social distancing measures in the shops, people walking side by side, but they want
yeah,
you to queue up outside, so just theoretically to say that we're doing stuff, that's the
yeah.
only reason I can think of, because a lot of them not making sense. A lot of them not making sense.
Yeah, well, for me, what I like to do to verify the validity of something is I follow the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the governments and the the corporations of the world weren't losing money in this pandemic, then I would say I would agree with you that it's a farce, right? But the fact that the US economy, the US national debt just blazed up a couple of $1 trillion. Corporations are losing money left, right, and center. And the airlines are nearly bankrupt. I think that people the governments now are becoming desperate that, yo, we need to do something about this now to try to get people back to work. We need to get the
I think
economy
it was the
moving again.
desperation to get people back to work, really, because the way things were at a standstill, it was, yeah, people were not making money. The businesses, yeah, I just think it was desperation for that because nothing else makes sense, kind of thing. And then now that you hear, okay, a second lockdown is coming, and it's like, oh my gosh, no more toilet paper again, kind of thing. Oh my goodness. I just think like people should have just take that serious. Stay at your home and let it wipe out, and then, but people just decided, took it upon themselves that coronavirus is gone. Meanwhile we're stuck in the house.
Right.
And
yeah, even on my end, here in Boston, you're seeing people without masks. You're seeing people walking around. In fact, I went on a walk yesterday and I walked past a party of people with no masks. Everybody just outside enjoying themselves. So
no big deal.
I'm hoping that there's not a second wave, but I really think there will
And
be.
my kids are like, Mom, I thought you said we can't go outside. Why are these people outside? Oh, it's been something. And, mental health, again, I don't know if it's us being locked in the house and, with all of these protests and everything was just piling one on top of the other, one on top of the other.
Right.
Oh my God. But they did say statistically, like, now is the time for all the suicides. That's why you're seeing on the news all these celebrities trying this and that. So in addition to all the deaths from COVID, they were anticipating another how many deaths from suicide alone.
Wow.
So when I tell you have to take care of your mind and just try to distance yourself from any and everybody and thing that making you unhappy, because it's real. It is real things and people you would never expect that to happen to, that kind of mental illness to make you want to just take your own life.
Yeah.
Right.
And suicide is a whole other topic that we could spend a whole other hour on.
Exactly.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I think we're coming up on the end of our time. Folks.
But that was interesting. You see why I tell you have to do a country segment?
Yeah, it would be nice to have a country segment when it would be nice to have a country segment where we have a little more feedback on the line. But I really enjoyed this conversation, and we should do this again, folks. If you're still with us, make sure that you go out and check Eleanor's YouTube page. Can you just tell the new people again where they can go to see more of your content, see more of your journey as a mom?
So my YouTube channel is called El Charlo, and my blog page is www.wifeofcharlo.com. And you're going to find loads of mommy content on there, just talking about loads of awkward topics. Today I did a kind of live convo on what happens down there after giving birth. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but yeah, that's the, types of things. To name a few that we do talk about over there. It's good fun as well. It's not just like groggy, depressing stuff. Like, it's good to have these conversations without it being like, okay, I need my tissues now, crying time kind of thing.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll be going over there to like, share, and subscribe. And folks, you should too. Don't be a scrub. Okay?
Yes, I.
And thank you so much for joining us on the line, Eleanor.
Thank you for having me.
Folks, you can see us here again at the next episode of Family Reflections. In the next 2 weeks, we do this bi-weekly. Okay? So we hope you join us again. In the meantime, stay easy. All right?
All right. Peace out.